when 7-year-old Emma stood up at the school assembly and declared, "You're my hero, Daddy," to her janitor father, she had no idea the entire auditorium was live streaming gore, that her words would expose a secret that would shake the education world forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story, and leave a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. We'd love to hear your story too. The fluorescent lights of the downtown office building buzzed overhead as Marcus Rivera pushed his janitorial cart down the empty hallway, his shoulders aching from another 12-hour shift. At 32, he looked older than his years, the weight of single parenthood and financial struggle etched in the lines around his dark eyes. The cheap digital watch on his wrist read 5:47 p.m., and panic shot through his chest like ice water. The daycare closed at 6 sharp, and Mrs. Henderson had already warned parents twice this month about late pickup fees, $20 he simply couldn't afford. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, abandoning his cart in the supply closet with less care than usual. His supervisor wouldn't be happy about the half-finished third floor, but Sophia came first. She always came first, even when it meant risking the job that barely kept their tiny apartment above the laundromat. Marcus's work boots echoed against the marble floors as he jogged toward the elevator, his mind calculating the fastest route through downtown traffic. 18 minutes if the lights cooperated. 25 if they didn't. The elevator seemed to descend in slow motion, each floor tick increasing his anxiety. At the parking garage, his 15-year-old Honda Civic coughed to life on the third try, the engine making the worrying, rattling sound that meant another expensive repair loomed in their uncertain future. The drive through downtown Austin became a blur of honking horns and aggressive lane changes as Marcus wove through traffic with the desperate efficiency of someone for whom being late meant consequences he couldn't afford. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white against the worn leather. The radio crackled with traffic reports, but he barely heard them over the sound of his own racing heartbeat. Sophia had been at Sunshine Daycare for 8 months now, ever since Marcus had finally saved enough for the deposit and first month's payment. Before that, she'd stayed with their elderly neighbor Mrs. 9T. Gutierrez, a kind woman whose failing eyesight and increasing confusion had made the arrangement untenable. The daycare wasn't ideal, understaffed and overcrowded, but it was licensed, affordable, and most importantly, it allowed Marcus to work both his janitorial job and his evening Uber shifts without worrying about his daughter's safety. The memory of dropping Sophia off that morning flashed through his mind, her small hand in his, her pink backpack bouncing against her shoulders as she skipped through the doorway. She'd been excited about show and tell, clutching the framed photo of her mother that she'd insisted on bringing. "I want to tell everyone about Mama," she'd said with the innocent earnestness of a 4-year-old who didn't fully understand why Mama wouldn't be coming home anymore. Marcus blinked hard, pushing away the familiar ache that always accompanied thoughts of Maria. 18 months since the cancer had taken her, and he still sometimes reached for her side of the bed in the mornings, still saved funny stories about Sophia to tell her when he got home, still felt like he was failing at this single-parent thing, despite his desperate efforts to hold everything together. The daycare center sat in a converted house in an older residential neighborhood. Its cheerful yellow paint and playground equipment, a stark contrast to the strip clubs and check-cashing stores that dominated their part of town. Marcus pulled into the small parking lot at 5:56, his heart still pounding from the mad dash across the city. 4 minutes to spare, but barely. Inside, the controlled chaos of pickup time was in full swing. Children gathered backpacks and art projects, while parents chatted with teachers and each other, most looking far more composed than Marcus felt. The walls were covered with finger paintings and construction paper crafts, and the air smelled of disinfectant mixed with the lingering aroma of whatever had been served for afternoon snack. "Mr. Rivera," called out Miss Jessica, one of the younger teachers, as she spotted him near the entrance. "Sophia's in the back room with the other late pickups. She made the most beautiful drawing of a butterfly today." Marcus nodded gratefully, making his way through the maze of tiny chairs and abandoned toys toward the back of the building. His work uniform navy blue polo shirt with Pinnacle Cleaning Services embroidered on the chest felt shabby among the business suits and yoga attire of the other parents, but he'd long ago stopped caring about such things. What mattered was getting to Sophia, getting home, and figuring out dinner from whatever remained in their increasingly bare refrigerator. The back room housed about 8 children whose parents, like Marcus, were cutting it close to the 6 o'clock deadline. Most were absorbed in books or quiet games, supervised by Mrs. Chen, the daycare's assistant director, who looked up with a welcoming smile as Marcus entered. "Right on time," she said warmly. "They've been very good today." Marcus scanned the room quickly, his eyes landing on a small figure in the corner with dark hair and pigtails, wearing a pink shirt he recognized. Relief flooded through him as he approached what he assumed was Sophia, who was intently coloring in a princess coloring book. "Hey, baby girl," he said softly, crouching down beside her. "Ready to go home?" The child looked up, and Marcus felt a moment of confusion. The face was similar dark eyes, olive skin, about the right age, but something seemed slightly off, different. Before he could process this feeling fully, the little girl nodded and began gathering her things with the automatic efficiency of a child accustomed to daycare routines. "Did you have a good day?" Marcus asked, as he helped her with her backpack, the nagging sense that something wasn't quite right growing stronger. But exhaustion clouded his judgment, and the pressing need to get home, figure out dinner, and prepare for his evening Uber shift pushed the doubt aside. "It was okay," the little girl replied quietly, her voice smaller than Sophia's usual enthusiastic chatter. "We played with blocks." Marcus attributed her subdued demeanor to tiredness. Sophia often got quiet when she was tired, especially lately. The trauma of losing her mother had manifested in various ways, and her teachers had warned him that behavioral changes were normal and expected. Some days she was her usual spirited self. Other days she retreated inward, processing emotions too complex for her young mind to fully comprehend. They made their way to the front desk where Marcus signed the pickup sheet, scribbling his signature without really looking at the page. Mrs. Henderson, the daycare director, was handling phone calls and paperwork, barely glancing up as they passed. The afternoon pickup routine was so familiar, so automatic, that no one noticed the small discrepancy unfolding. In the parking lot, Marcus helped the child into Sophia's booster seat, still feeling that nagging wrongness but unable to pinpoint its source. The little girl buckled herself in with practiced ease, staring out the window as Marcus started the car. Usually, Sophia would be chattering about her day, asking about his work, requesting specific songs on the radio. This unusual quiet should have been a red flag, but Marcus was too exhausted, too focused on the logistics of their evening to pay proper attention. The drive home took 15 minutes through increasingly run-down neighborhoods until they reached the 3-story building that housed Rivera's laundromat on the ground floor and cheap apartments above. Marcus parked in the narrow alley behind the building, gathering work papers and the child's backpack as they climbed the exterior stairs to their second-floor unit. Their apartment was small but clean, a living room that doubled as Marcus's office, one bedroom they shared, and a kitchenette barely large enough for 2 people. Marcus had tried to make it homey with Sophia's artwork taped to the walls and pictures of Maria scattered throughout, but the space felt cramped and temporary, a landing pad between crises rather than a true home. "Go wash your hands," Marcus instructed automatically as they entered, dropping his keys on the counter and immediately moving to check their mailbox contents bills, mostly that he'd sort through later with his usual mixture of dread and determination. When he looked up from the stack of envelopes, the little girl was standing in the doorway to the bathroom, looking around the apartment with an expression of confusion that Marcus finally registered as significant. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice carrying a tremor of uncertainty that made Marcus's stomach clench. "We're home, sweetheart," Marcus replied, kneeling to her level. "Are you feeling okay?" The child's dark eyes filled with tears that threatened to spill over. "This isn't my house," she said, her voice growing smaller. "Where's my mommy? I want Mommy Victoria." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Mommy Victoria. Not Mama, not Mommy Victoria. And suddenly, Looking at this little girl with fresh eyes, he saw all the differences he'd been too tired and stressed to notice. Her hair was straighter than Sophia's tight curls. Her face was rounder, her skin a different shade. Even her clothes, which he'd recognized as Sophia's pink shirt, he now realized was a different pink shirt entirely. "Oh God," Marcus breathed, his mind racing through the implications. "Oh God, you're not Sophia." The little girl nodded solemnly, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "I'm Emma," she said. "Emma Chen. Where's Mommy Victoria? She always picks me up." Marcus felt his legs give out slightly, forcing him to sit down hard on their second-hand couch. Emma Chen. He frantically tried to remember if he'd ever heard that name at the daycare. But the parent-teacher interactions were usually brief, focused on Sophia's day rather than getting to know other families. How had this happened? How had he picked up the wrong child, and where was Sophia? His hands shaking, Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed the daycare's main number. It rang 4 times before Mrs. Henderson answered, her voice already carrying the tired edge of someone eager to close up for the day. "Sunshine Daycare, this is Mrs. Henderson." "Mrs. Henderson, this is Marcus Rivera, Sophia's dad. I think there's been a mistake. I picked up the wrong child today." There was a pause, followed by the sound of papers shuffling. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, what did you say?" "I have a little girl named Emma Chen with me instead of my daughter Sophia. I think I picked up the wrong child at pickup time." The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then, Mrs. Henderson's voice returned, tight with barely controlled panic. "Mr. Rivera, please hold on. One moment." Marcus could hear muffled conversations in the background, voices raised in urgent discussion. Emma had stopped crying but remained standing uncertainly in the middle of their small living room, looking around at the unfamiliar surroundings with the wide-eyed wariness of a child in a strange place. "I'm sorry," Marcus said to her gently. "There was a mix-up. We're going to call your mommy right now and get you home, okay?" Emma nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Is Sophia okay?" she asked, her concern for his daughter touching Marcus despite his own rising panic. "I'm sure she's fine," Marcus assured her, hoping desperately that this was true. Mrs. Henderson returned to the phone, her voice carefully controlled, but unable to hide the underlying stress. "Mr. Rivera, I need to ask you to please stay where you are. We're contacting Emma's mother right now. This is highly unusual. Our pickup procedures are specifically designed to prevent this kind of mistake." "Where is Sophia?" Marcus demanded, his parental instincts overriding any concern for the daycare's procedures or reputation. "Who has my daughter?" "Sophia left with Mrs. Chen about 20 minutes ago." "Mrs. Chen? She didn't realize it wasn't Emma either. We're calling her immediately." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to process this information. Somewhere across the city, his 4-year-old daughter was with a complete stranger, probably as confused and scared as Emma was right now. The thought made him feel sick. "What's Mrs. Chen's number?" Marcus asked. "I need to call her directly." "I can't give out parent contact information, Mr. Rivera. That's our policy. But I've already left her a voicemail, and I'm trying her office number now. She works downtown, so she might still be in meetings." Downtown. That was a 20-minute drive from the daycare, maybe more in evening traffic. Marcus felt his anxiety ratchet up another notch. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice sharper than he'd intended. "My daughter is with a stranger because your daycare can't keep track of which child belongs to which parent. Mr. Rivera, I understand your concern, and I assure you we're doing everything possible to resolve this situation quickly. Both children are safe, and—" Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming call, unknown number with a local area code. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm getting another call. This might be her." "Please call me back as soon as you've spoken with Mrs. Chen," Mrs. Henderson said quickly before Marcus switched to the incoming call. "Hello?" Marcus answered, his heart pounding. "Is this Marcus Rivera?" The voice was female, professional, sounding but with an edge of barely contained worry. "I believe you have my daughter." "Yes, Emma's here with me. Where's Sophia? Is she okay?" Sophia's fine. She's right here with me. She's asking for her daddy and seems confused about why she's in my car. I'm Victoria Chen, Emma's mother. I think we need to meet immediately to exchange the girls. Marcus felt a wave of relief so intense it nearly buckled his knees. Sophia was safe. That was all that mattered right now. Where do you want to meet? He asked, already moving toward the door. I'm still downtown, but I can drive toward you. Where are you located? Marcus gave her their address, then paused. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry about this. I don't know how it happened. I was running late, and I was tired, and… Please, don't apologize, Victoria Chen interrupted, her voice warmer now. I made the same mistake. I was distracted by work calls, and Sophia looked so much like Emma from behind. When she got in my car, I didn't realize until we were halfway to my house, and she started asking for someone named Marcus instead of Mommy. Despite the stress of the situation, Marcus felt a small spark of gratitude that this woman, this stranger who had his daughter, seemed understanding rather than accusatory. I'll meet you halfway, Marcus offered. There's a shopping center on Riverside Drive, about 15 minutes from downtown. The one with the big Target? Riverside Plaza? Yes, I know it. I can be there in 20 minutes. Emma and I will leave now. After ending the call, Marcus turned to Emma, who had been listening to his side of the conversation with the intense focus of a child trying to understand adult concerns that affected her directly. Good news, he told her with a smile he hoped looked more confident than he felt. We're going to meet your mommy and get you back to her. And I'll get Sophia back too. Emma nodded solemnly. Will you be in trouble? She asked, her concern for his well-being surprising him. No, sweetheart. It was just a mistake. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too. The drive to Riverside Plaza felt simultaneously endless and too short. Marcus found himself studying Emma in the rear-view mirror, noting all the differences he should have seen immediately, the way she sat quieter than Sophia usually did, her different mannerisms, even the way she held her head. How had he been so blind? The exhaustion was no excuse for failing to recognize that this wasn't his own daughter. Emma seemed to sense his self-recrimination. It's okay, she said quietly from the back seat. You're nice. And your house smells like my grandma's house. Marcus felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. Thank you, Emma. You've been very brave today. The shopping center parking lot was busy with evening shoppers, families loading groceries and teenagers gathering near the food court entrance. Marcus parked near the Target entrance, easily visible from multiple directions, and waited with Emma, who had grown quiet again as the reality of the strange day caught up with her. At exactly 6:47, a sleek black SUV pulled into the parking space across from them. Through the windshield, Marcus could see a woman in what appeared to be professional attire, and beside her, a small figure with familiar curly hair. There's Mommy, Emma exclaimed, her whole demeanor brightening as she spotted the SUV. Marcus got out first, going around to help Emma from her booster seat. As he lifted her down, the SUV's doors opened, and Sophia came running toward them with the unconstrained joy of a 4-year-old reunited with her parent. Daddy! She shouted, launching herself into his arms with enough force to nearly knock him backward. I was with a nice lady, but I wanted you. Marcus held his daughter tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and feeling the last of his panic finally subside. She was here. She was safe. She was his again. I was worried about you, baby girl, he murmured into her hair. I wasn't scared, Sophia announced with 4-year-old bravado. Mrs. Victoria was nice and she has a pretty car, but I told her you always pick me up. Over Sophia's head, Marcus looked up to see Victoria Chen approaching. She was tall, probably around his age, with shoulder-length black hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to being in charge. Her business suit looked expensive, and even her casual approach across a parking lot carried an air of confidence that spoke of success and authority. Emma, sweetheart, Victoria said, opening her arms as her daughter ran to her. Mommy, the nice man took care of me. He has pictures of his wife everywhere, and his house smells good. Victoria lifted Emma easily, settling her on her hip before turning to Marcus with an expression of mixed relief and curiosity. "Mr. Rivera, I presume?" "Marcus," he corrected, shifting Sophia to his other arm. "And thank you for taking care of Sophia. I can't imagine how confusing this must have been for both of them." "They handled it better than we did, I think," Victoria said with a slight smile. "Sophia's been telling me all about her butterfly drawing and how you work in a tall building and drive people around in your car at night." Marcus felt heat creep up his neck. Through a 4-year-old's eyes, his janitorial work and Uber driving probably sounded more impressive than it felt, but Victoria's tone carried no judgment, only mild amusement. "She likes to talk," Marcus said, bouncing Sophia gently. "Sometimes too much. I think it's charming. Emma's usually the quiet one, but Sophia had her laughing within 10 minutes. The two children were already gravitating toward each other again, and Marcus set Sophia down so she could properly reunite with Emma. They immediately began comparing notes about their unexpected adventure, their voices overlapping in the way that only small children could manage. "I should probably ask," Victoria said, lowering her voice slightly, "how something like this happens. I mean, the daycare has procedures, sign-out sheets, ID requirements." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of his exhaustion and the day's near disaster settling on his shoulders. "I was running late from work, rushing, tired. I saw a little girl with dark hair and a pink shirt sitting where the late pickups usually wait, and I just assumed. I should have looked more carefully, but honestly, I was just focused on getting there before they closed." Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "I did the same thing. I had back-to-back conference calls until 5:30, rushed over there, and saw Emma's backpack and hair ribbon on a child sitting in the pickup area. I was so distracted by work that I didn't really look at her face until we were almost to my house. There was something in her tone that suggested self-recrimination similar to his own, and Marcus felt an unexpected kinship with this clearly successful woman who had made the same mistake he had. "The important thing is, everyone's safe," Marcus said. "Absolutely." Victoria shifted Emma to her other hip, then seemed to hesitate before continuing. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but Sophia mentioned that her mother, that she lives with just you?" Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest that always accompanied questions about Maria. "My wife died last year. Cancer. It's just Sophia and me now." Victoria's expression immediately shifted to one of genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly difficult." "We're managing," Marcus replied, the automatic response he'd perfected for these situations. It was easier than explaining the reality. The constant fear of financial ruin, the exhaustion of working multiple jobs, the daily worry that he wasn't enough for Sophia on his own. "Emma's father isn't in the picture either," Victoria said quietly. "Different circumstances, but I understand the single-parent thing. It's not easy." Before Marcus could respond, Sophia tugged on his pants leg, demanding attention. "Daddy, can Emma come to our house sometime? She said she wants to see my butterfly drawing." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "And Sophia wants to see my room. I have a big toy kitchen." The two adults exchanged glances over their daughters' heads, both clearly recognizing the social complexity that had just been introduced to an already strange situation. "That's very sweet," Victoria said diplomatically, "but we'll have to see about scheduling." Marcus appreciated her tact. The last thing he needed was Sophia getting attached to playmates whose families moved in circles far above their own economic reality. One look at Victoria's car, her clothes, her general bearing suggested a lifestyle that would make his shabby apartment and constant financial stress painfully obvious. "We should probably get going," Marcus said, gently deflecting. "It's been a long day for everyone." Victoria nodded, but something in her expression suggested she was processing more than just the evening's events. "Of course. Emma, say goodbye to Sophia and Mr. Marcus." The girls hugged with the intensity of 4-year-olds who had shared an adventure, promising each other with the confidence of children that they would see each other again soon. "Thank you again," Marcus said as they prepared to return to their respective vehicles. for taking such good care of Sophia. She took care of me too, in a way, Victoria replied, settling Emma into her car seat. It's been a long time since I've seen the world through a 4-year-old's eyes. Sophia has quite an imagination. As they drove away in opposite directions, Marcus caught Sophia's reflection in the rearview mirror. She was staring out the window thoughtfully, processing the day's events in the way children do. "Daddy," she said after several minutes of unusual quiet, "why don't we have a car like Mrs. Victoria's?" The question, innocent and curious rather than accusatory, still hit Marcus like a small punch to the stomach. How did you explain economic disparity to a 4-year-old? How did you tell your daughter that some people had more because life was unfair, because circumstances differed, because her father wasn't successful enough to provide the things other families took for granted? "Different families have different kinds of cars," Marcus replied carefully. "Our car gets us where we need to go, and that's what matters." Sophia accepted this explanation with the resilience of a child who had learned not to ask for things that weren't possible. It was a lesson Marcus wished she didn't have to learn so young, but one that circumstances had forced upon both of them. As they pulled into the alley behind their building, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. He waited until they were upstairs, and Sophia was settled with her coloring books before checking it. The message was from an unknown number. "This is Victoria Chen. I got your number from the daycare emergency contact list. I wanted to make sure you and Sophia got home safely, and to thank you again for taking such good care of Emma today. I know this was stressful for everyone involved." Marcus stared at the text for several moments, unsure how to respond. The polite thing would be to reply with similar sentiments, but something about the day's events, about Victoria's kindness and lack of judgment, made him want to say more than social convention required. Finally, he typed back, "We're home safe, thank you. Emma was wonderful company, and Sophia hasn't stopped talking about her new friend. I hope Emma wasn't too upset by the whole mix-up." The response came quickly. "She's fine, actually asking when she can see Sophia again. Kids are remarkably resilient." Marcus found himself smiling despite the exhaustion that was beginning to catch up with him. "They are. Sophia's been asking the same thing." There was a longer pause before the next message arrived. "I know this might sound strange, but would you be interested in getting the girls together sometime soon? They clearly connected, and Emma doesn't have many friends her age." Marcus stared at the text, uncertainty warring with an unexpected hope in his chest. Sophia did need friends, especially friends who could help her process the social aspects of being 4 in a complex world. But he also worried about the differences between their lives, about Sophia seeing things she couldn't have, about his own ability to navigate social situations with someone from Victoria's obviously different economic stratum. Before he could overthink it completely, he typed back, "Sophia would love that. We could meet at a playground or somewhere neutral." "Actually," came the quick reply, "I was thinking more along the lines of dinner. Nothing fancy, just pizza or something kid-friendly. Emma's been asking about Sophia's butterfly drawing, and I'd like to hear more about how you managed to keep her so calm during what must have been a very confusing situation." Marcus felt his heart rate increase slightly. A dinner invitation from a successful businesswoman who had seen his shabby apartment and knew about his work situation. It could be simple parental networking, or it could be something else entirely. Either way, it represented a connection to a world he'd never imagined accessing, an opportunity for Sophia to expand her social circle beyond their small, struggling community. "That sounds nice," he replied, then added, "Are you sure? I mean, we don't really know each other." The response came with what Marcus imagined might be a laugh behind it. "We know each other well enough to have accidentally trusted each other with our children for several hours. That's got to count for something." As Marcus prepared dinner and helped Sophia with her bedtime routine, he found himself thinking about the strange turns that had led to this moment. A simple mistake, the kind of mix-up that happened when exhausted parents move through familiar routines on autopilot, had somehow opened a door to possibilities he couldn't yet fully envision. While Sophia brushed her teeth, chattering about Emma and her new friend's house and toys, Marcus wondered if maybe, just maybe, the day's confusion had been leading towards something better than either of them could have planned. Sometimes, he thought as he tucked Sophia into bed and listened to her excited whispers about seeing Emma again, the most important changes begin with the smallest mistakes. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, hand-delivered by Emma as she bounced through the front door of their apartment with her usual post-school energy. Marcus looked up from his laptop, where he'd been researching LED lighting upgrades for the school's gymnasium, and smiled at his daughter's animated expression. "Daddy, look what Mrs. Chen gave me," Emma announced, waving the envelope like a trophy. "It's about Career Day next Friday, and she said all the parents can come talk about their jobs." Marcus felt his stomach clench as he accepted the envelope, noting the cheerful letterhead and professional formatting that characterized all official school communications. Inside, he found a colorful flyer explaining the Career Day format. Parents would rotate through classrooms, giving brief presentations about their professions, followed by a school-wide assembly where selected parents would address the entire student body. "See, Daddy?" Emma continued, climbing onto the couch beside him and pointing to specific sections of the flyer. "It says, parents can bring props and costumes and talk about what makes their job special. Mrs. Patterson's husband is going to bring his stethoscope because he's a doctor, and Aiden's mom is bringing law books because she's a lawyer who helps people." The enthusiasm in Emma's voice made Marcus's chest tight with conflicting emotions. He could see her genuine excitement about the event, her assumption that her father would naturally participate alongside the other parents. What she couldn't understand, what her 7-year-old mind had no framework for processing, was the social hierarchy that would make his presence uncomfortable for everyone involved. "That sounds like a wonderful event, sweetheart," Marcus said carefully, scanning the flyer for details about participation requirements. "I'm sure you'll learn a lot about different careers. But you have to come talk about being a janitor," Emma insisted, her green eyes bright with anticipation. "You know more about taking care of our school than anybody else. You fix everything and make everything work better." Marcus set the flyer aside, choosing his words with the careful precision he applied to engineering problems. Career Day is usually for parents who work during the day, in offices and hospitals and places like that. I work at night, and my job might not be as interesting to your classmates as the other presentations." Emma's expression shifted from excitement to confusion. "Not interesting? But Daddy, you do the most important job. Without you, the computers wouldn't work, and the lights wouldn't turn on right, and the playground wouldn't be safe." The conviction in her voice was absolute, unmarred by any understanding of how society valued different types of work. To Emma, her father's contributions were self-evidently important, worthy of celebration and explanation. Marcus felt the familiar ache of wanting to protect her from the harder truths about class distinctions and social judgment, while simultaneously being proud of her loyalty and perception. Over the following days, Emma's enthusiasm for Career Day only intensified. She came home each afternoon with new details about other parents' planned presentations, each description highlighting the growing gap between Marcus's reality and the professional landscape that would be represented at the event. "Sophie's dad is bringing his pilot uniform and pictures of all the countries he's flown to," Emma reported on Wednesday, spreading her homework across the kitchen table. "And Marcus, not me Marcus, but Marcus Patterson, his mom, is going to explain how she designs buildings with computers." "That's very exciting," Marcus replied, helping Emma organize her math worksheets while internally calculating the professional credentials that would be on display. Pilots, architects, doctors, lawyers' parents with advanced degrees, prestigious careers, and the kind of social standing that commanded respect in environments like Riverside Elementary. "What will you bring to show everyone about your job?" Emma asked, looking up from her multiplication problems with expectant curiosity. Marcus considered the question seriously. What props could represent the work he actually did? A mop and bucket would be the obvious choice, but that image would only reinforce the stereotypes he was trying to help Emma navigate. His real tools, The diagnostic equipment he used for computer repairs, the engineering instruments that helped him optimize building systems, the technical manuals he consulted for complex problem-solving weren't officially part of his job description. "I'll figure something out," he said finally, hoping the conversation would move in a different direction. By Thursday evening, Emma's excitement had reached a crescendo. She'd laid out her favorite dress for the next day, prepared a list of questions to ask the visiting parents, and spent an hour drawing a picture of Marcus at work that she planned to show her classmates during his presentation. The drawing depicted Marcus surrounded by computers, tools, and happy children, with "My Hero Daddy" written in careful cursive across the top. In Emma's artistic interpretation, her father appeared confident and capable, clearly in command of his environment. The image captured her genuine perception of his work and importance, untainted by external judgments about job prestige or social status. "I can't wait for everyone to meet you tomorrow," Emma said as Marcus tucked her into bed. "They're going to see how smart and important you are." Marcus kissed her forehead, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the next day would likely not match her optimistic expectations. "Remember, sweetheart, the most important thing is that you know who I am and what I do. Other people's opinions don't change the truth." That night, Marcus lay awake, contemplating his options. He could feign illness, claim a work emergency, or simply tell Emma that janitors weren't included in career day presentations. Any of these choices would spare him the humiliation of standing before an audience of successful professionals in his maintenance uniform, trying to make his work sound inspiring to children whose parents commanded significantly higher salaries and social status. But rejecting Emma's invitation would also betray her trust and enthusiasm, sending the message that her father's work was indeed something to be ashamed of. The thought of disappointing her, of seeing her bright confidence dim in the face of his absence, made the prospect of personal discomfort seem secondary. Marcus arrived at Riverside Elementary on Friday morning, with a small toolbox and a folder containing some of the anonymous improvement suggestions he'd submitted to the administration over the past year. If he was going to present his work, he reasoned, he might as well represent it accurately as problem-solving and systems thinking, not just cleaning and maintenance. The parking lot was already filling with luxury vehicles as other career day participants arrived. Marcus parked his decade-old Honda Civic between a BMW and a Tesla, noting the contrast without letting it influence his resolve. Emma had requested his presence, and he would honor that request regardless of his personal comfort level. Inside the school, the main hallway buzzed with unusual activity. Parents in professional attire chatted confidently while organizing presentation materials, their easy familiarity with public speaking evident in their relaxed postures and animated gestures. Marcus recognized several faces from school events: the surgeon who'd spoken at the previous year's fundraising gala, the tech executive who'd donated computers to the library, the attorney who'd helped the PTA navigate some legal issues. "Mr. Thompson," Mrs. Chen appeared at his elbow, her warm smile genuinely welcoming. "Emma has been talking about your presentation all week. She's so excited to introduce you to her classmates." "I hope I can live up to her expectations," Marcus replied, adjusting his grip on the toolbox that suddenly felt inadequate compared to the sophisticated presentation materials he observed around him. "Oh, I'm sure you will," Mrs. Chen assured him. "Emma speaks about your work with such pride and detail. It's clear she understands how important your contributions are to our school community." The morning schedule called for parents to rotate through individual classrooms, giving 15-minute presentations to small groups before the school-wide assembly after lunch. Marcus's first presentation was scheduled for Mrs. Patterson's fourth-grade class, a room he cleaned every Tuesday and Thursday night, and where he'd recently installed improved lighting that reduced eye strain during computer work. As he entered the classroom, Marcus was struck by seeing the space filled with children during daytime hours. The room he knew in quiet darkness was now vibrant with young voices, colorful artwork, and the energetic chaos of elementary education. The students looked up at him with polite curiosity, though he noticed several exchanging glances that suggested they recognized him as the night janitor they occasionally glimpsed during after-school activities. "Class, this is Mr. Thompson, Emma's father," Mrs. Patterson announced. "He's going to tell us about his work here at our school." Marcus set his toolbox on the teacher's desk and opened his folder, his hands steadier than he'd expected. Looking out at the expectant faces, he decided to approach his presentation the same way he approached engineering problems, systematically and honestly. "How many of you have noticed that the computers in the lab work faster this year than they did last year?" he began, surprised by the strength of his own voice. Several hands shot up immediately. "Mine doesn't freeze anymore when I'm typing," offered a boy in the front row. "And the lights don't flicker like they used to," added a girl near the window. Marcus nodded, feeling more confident as he recognized genuine engagement. Those improvements happened because someone identified problems and found solutions. "That's actually a big part of what I do here. I notice things that aren't working properly, and I figure out how to fix them." He opened his toolbox, revealing not just cleaning supplies, but diagnostic tools, measuring devices, and technical equipment. "For example, when the air in this room was too stuffy last winter, I used this device to measure airflow and found that the ventilation system needed adjustments." The children leaned forward with interest, their initial preconceptions clearly shifting as Marcus demonstrated how he approached problems scientifically. He showed them how he used digital multimeters to diagnose electrical issues, explained how he'd redesigned the playground layout to improve safety, and described the systematic thinking that went into maintaining a building where 400 children learned every day. "But Mr. Thompson," interrupted a girl with pigtails, "aren't you just the janitor?" The question hung in the air, its innocent directness cutting to the heart of social assumptions about work and worth. Marcus paused, considering his response carefully. "I am a janitor," he confirmed, "but that title doesn't describe everything I do. When you grow up, you might find that jobs often involve much more than their simple descriptions suggest. The important thing is bringing your full capabilities to whatever work you do, regardless of what other people call it." Mrs. Patterson, who had been observing from the back of the room, stepped forward with obvious admiration. "Mr. Thompson, I had no idea you were responsible for so many of the improvements we've noticed. The children and I are very grateful for your care of our school." As Marcus moved through his scheduled classroom presentations, he found his confidence growing. Each group of children responded with genuine interest to his explanations of problem-solving and systems thinking. Their questions were thoughtful and engaged, unmarred by adult prejudices about the relative value of different professions. During lunch break, Marcus sat alone in the cafeteria, reviewing his notes for the afternoon assembly, while watching Emma chat excitedly with her friends at a nearby table. She kept glancing in his direction with obvious pride, occasionally pointing him out to classmates who looked over with curious respect. "Mind if I join you?" Marcus looked up to find Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the surgeon who'd presented that morning, standing with a lunch tray. He recognized her from school events and Emma's descriptions of her daughter's achievements, but they'd never spoken directly. "Of course," Marcus replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. Dr. Mitchell settled herself with the efficient movements of someone accustomed to making quick decisions under pressure. "I wanted to thank you for the work you've done on the building's air filtration system. As someone who spends a lot of time thinking about infection control, I've noticed the improvement in air quality this year." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "You noticed that?" "Hard not to, when you understand what to look for." She smiled. "The reduction in respiratory illnesses among the students has been significant. That kind of environmental improvement requires real expertise." Their conversation was interrupted by the announcement that the afternoon assembly was beginning. Parents and students filed into the gymnasium, where a makeshift stage had been set up with microphones and chairs for the featured presenters. Marcus had been selected to speak during the assembly in honor that Emma had mentioned repeatedly, but that he'd tried not to think about too seriously. The gymnasium filled with excited chatter as families found seats together. Marcus spotted Emma in the third row, waving enthusiastically when she caught his eye. Around her sat her classmates with their parents, the pilot, the architect, the attorney, and several other professionals whose credentials would be immediately recognizable to any adult in the audience. Principal Rodriguez took the microphone first, welcoming everyone to Career Day and expressing gratitude for the parent volunteers who were sharing their expertise. Today, our students have learned about many different paths to success and contribution, she announced. We're fortunate to have such accomplished families in our school community. The featured presentations began with Dr. Mitchell discussing the educational path to becoming a surgeon. Her slides showed medical school graduation photos, complex surgical procedures, and the high-tech environment of modern hospitals. The audience listened with respectful attention, children asking questions about saving lives and helping people. Next came James Morrison, the pilot, whose presentation included videos of aircraft takeoffs, maps of international routes, and stories about flying through storms and navigating complex weather patterns. The children were mesmerized by images of cockpits and aerial views of cities around the world. Sarah Chen, the architect, followed with a presentation about designing buildings that were both beautiful and functional. Her slides showed computer models transforming into actual structures, architectural drawings becoming real spaces where people lived and worked. She emphasized the importance of mathematics and creativity in solving spatial problems. As Marcus's turn approached, he felt the familiar tightness in his chest that accompanied public speaking. Unlike the previous presenters, he had no impressive slides, no dramatic stories of life-saving procedures or international travel. His work happened in shadows, unobserved and unacknowledged, creating improvements that were noticed only when they failed to exist. Our final presenter today is Marcus Thompson, father of Emma Thompson in Mrs. Chen's second-grade class. Principal Rodriguez announced. Thompson works right here at Riverside Elementary, and I understand he has some interesting insights to share about the behind-the-scenes systems that keep our school running smoothly. Marcus approached the microphone, his prepared remarks suddenly feeling inadequate compared to the polished presentations that had preceded him. Looking out at the audience, he saw Emma in the third row, her face glowing with anticipation and pride. Her expression reminded him why he was there, not to impress other adults, but to honor his daughter's belief in his worth and importance. "Good afternoon," Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the gymnasium sound system. "I want to start by asking a question. How many of you have noticed that things work better at your school this year than they did before?" A murmur of recognition rippled through the audience as hands went up throughout the room, both children and adults, acknowledging improvements they'd observed but perhaps not consciously registered. "Those improvements didn't happen by accident," Marcus continued, gaining confidence as he saw engaged faces looking back at him. "They happened because someone took the time to understand how systems work, identify problems, and implement solutions." He began describing his approach to maintaining and improving the school environment, explaining how he'd approached each challenge systematically. Unlike his classroom presentations, this audience included adults who could appreciate the technical complexity of his work, the energy efficiency improvements, the network optimization, the proactive safety measures. "The truth is," Marcus said, looking directly at Emma, "I do much more than most people realize. And that's taught me something important about work and value. The most significant contributions often happen quietly, without recognition or fanfare. What matters isn't whether other people notice what you do, it's whether you bring your full capabilities to making things better." As he spoke, Marcus noticed something unexpected happening in the audience. Parents who had initially looked politely disinterested were now paying closer attention, their expressions shifting from tolerance to genuine respect. Dr. Mitchell was nodding appreciatively. The architect was taking notes. Even the attorney appeared engaged with his discussion of systematic problem-solving. "I want my daughter and all of you to understand," Marcus concluded, "that every honest job has dignity and importance. But more than that, every person has capabilities that might not be obvious from their job title. The janitor might be an engineer. The cashier might be a poet. The delivery driver might be a historian. Our work doesn't define our worth or character, and contributions do." The applause that followed was warm and sustained, but Marcus barely heard it. His attention was focused entirely on Emma, who was beaming at him with such fierce pride that he felt his eyes sting with unexpected emotion. This was the moment she had envisioned her father recognized and respected by her entire school community. What none of them knew was that the assembly was being live-streamed for parents who couldn't attend in person, a new technology initiative that Principal Rodriguez had implemented to increase family engagement. The stream was automatically recorded and posted to the school's website, where it would soon be discovered by viewers far beyond the Riverside Elementary community. As families began to file out of the gymnasium, several parents approached Marcus with comments and questions. The pilot wanted to know more about the energy efficiency improvements. The architect was curious about his systematic approach to space optimization. Dr. Mitchell invited him to coffee to discuss the air quality modifications in more detail. But the most meaningful interaction came from Emma herself, who ran to him the moment he stepped down from the stage. "Daddy, that was perfect," she announced, throwing her arms around his waist. "Everyone could see how smart and important you are. Mrs. Patterson said you're the best presenter we had all day." As they walked to the parking lot together, Emma chattering excitedly about her classmates' reactions and the questions they'd asked, Marcus felt a profound shift in his understanding of his own situation. For 3 years, he'd operated under the assumption that his professional circumstances required him to remain invisible, to accept social diminishment as the price of economic stability. But Emma's unwavering belief in his worth, combined with the respectful attention of other parents who could recognize expertise when they saw it, suggested a different possibility. Perhaps the problem wasn't his work or his capabilities, but his own acceptance of others' limited perceptions. That evening, as they celebrated Career Day's success with pizza and Emma's favorite movie, neither father nor daughter could have imagined that Marcus's presentation was already beginning to circulate beyond their small school community. The live stream had been shared by several parents on social media, where Marcus's message about hidden capabilities and the dignity of all work was resonating with viewers who had their own experiences of being underestimated or overlooked. Within hours, the video would begin going viral, shared by teachers, parents, and workers across the country who recognized themselves in Marcus's story. But for now, they were simply a father and daughter who had successfully navigated a challenging social situation together, proving to themselves and their community that worth and capability came in many forms. Emma fell asleep that night, clutching the drawing she'd made of her hero daddy, while Marcus stayed up late reading the supportive comments that were already beginning to appear on the school's website. The invisible man was about to become very visible indeed. The first sign that something extraordinary was happening came at 6:23 a.m. on Saturday morning, when Marcus's phone began buzzing with notifications that continued without pause for nearly 20 minutes. Bleary-eyed and assuming the device was malfunctioning, he stumbled from his bedroom to find Emma already awake in the kitchen, pouring cereal into her bowl with unusual precision. "Daddy, your phone keeps making noise," she observed, crunching thoughtfully on her Lucky Charms. "It started really early. I thought maybe there was an emergency at school." Marcus picked up his phone, expecting to find a few missed calls or perhaps spam messages that had triggered the notification storm. Instead, his screen displayed dozens of missed calls from unknown numbers, hundreds of text messages, and social media alerts that seemed to be multiplying even as he watched. The first message he opened was from a number he didn't recognize. "Saw your video. Is this really Marcus Thompson from MIT class of 2015, David Chen?" His stomach dropped as memories flooded back. David Chen had been his study partner in advanced systems engineering, a brilliant classmate who'd gone on to found a successful AI startup in Silicon Valley. They'd lost touch after Marcus's world collapsed, but David's message suggested that somehow, impossibly, his Career Day presentation had reached his former MIT community. Marcus scrolled through more messages, finding similar inquiries from names he hadn't heard in years, former professors, classmates, colleagues from his startup days. Each message expressed variations of the same astonishment, recognition of his voice and face, combined with confusion about his current circumstances. Marcus Thompson, we've been wondering what happened to you. Saw the school video. Is that really you working as a janitor? Sarah Patel? Dude, your presentation just showed up on my LinkedIn feed. 0 shares already. What's the story? Mike Rodriguez? Professor Williams here. Your career day talk is being shared across engineering forums. Can we talk? J. Williams, MIT. With growing bewilderment, Marcus opened his laptop and searched for Marcus Thompson Riverside Elementary Career Day. The results were overwhelming. His presentation had been uploaded to YouTube by multiple users, shared across Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and picked up by education blogs and engineering forums. The video views were climbing steadily. 50, 0, then 75, 0, then over 100, 0 in just the hours since he'd gone to sleep. The comments sections were filled with reactions that ranged from inspirational to analytical. Teachers shared the video as an example of finding dignity in all work. Engineers debated the technical skills Marcus had demonstrated. Parents discussed the importance of recognizing hidden talents in their communities. But it was the comments from his former MIT community that truly shocked Marcus. His classmates had not only recognized him, but were actively sharing the video with amazement and respect, adding context about his former achievements that transformed the narrative from inspiring janitor to hidden genius. For those who don't know, David Chen had commented on one share, Marcus Thompson has a PhD in environmental engineering from MIT. His doctoral thesis on water purification systems was groundbreaking. This man once designed technology that could provide clean water to entire villages. The fact that he's working as a janitor while demonstrating this level of systems thinking is exactly what's wrong with how we evaluate talent in this country. Emma appeared at his shoulder, standing on her tiptoes to see the laptop screen. Daddy, why are there so many people talking about your presentation? Marcus wasn't sure how to answer. The viral spread of his career day talk felt surreal, disconnected from the quiet life they'd built together. It seems like a lot of people saw the video and wanted to share it with their friends, he said carefully. Are you famous now? Emma asked with 7-year-old directness. Before Marcus could formulate a response, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a local number he didn't recognize, but given the morning's strange developments, he decided to answer. Mr. Thompson, this is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We'd love to do a story about your background and your work at Riverside Elementary. Would you be available for an interview today? Marcus felt the walls of his carefully constructed privacy beginning to crumble. I'm not sure I understand why that would be newsworthy. Sir, your story is already trending on social media. The combination of your MIT background and your current work has struck a chord with people across the country. We think our viewers would be very interested in hearing more about your experience. After declining the interview request and hanging up, Marcus found 3 more voicemails from different news outlets, 2 from educational publications, and 1 from a documentary filmmaker who specialized in stories about overlooked genius in unexpected places. By noon, the situation had escalated beyond anything Marcus could have imagined. The video had surpassed 500, 0 views across multiple platforms. Hidden Genius was trending on Twitter. Engineering blogs were analyzing his career day presentation for technical insights. Education websites were using his story to discuss the dignity of all work and the importance of recognizing diverse forms of intelligence. Most significantly, his former MIT network had mobilized with remarkable efficiency. Professor Williams, his former thesis advisor, had posted a detailed LinkedIn article about Marcus's academic achievements and the innovative water purification technology he'd developed. The post included photos from Marcus's doctoral defense and excerpts from his research that had been cited in over 200 subsequent papers. The Marcus Thompson I knew was destined to change the world through engineering innovation, Professor Williams had written. Seeing him apply that same systematic thinking and problem-solving excellence to improving his daughter's school environment demonstrates that genius doesn't disappear when circumstances change. It adapts and finds new ways to create positive impact. The academic context transformed public perception of the viral video. What had initially spread as an inspiring story about a janitor who spoke eloquently about his work was now being shared as a more complex narrative about talent, opportunity, and the ways society failed to recognize expertise when it appeared in unexpected contexts. Marcus's phone rang again, this time displaying a number he recognized. Bob Martinez, his supervisor, sounded uncharacteristically flustered. "Thompson, what the hell is going on? I've got reporters calling the district office asking about you, and Principal Rodriguez wants to see both of us first thing Monday morning. Something about a video?" "Bob, I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been going around telling people you're some kind of genius engineer? You better not have been misrepresenting yourself to the school community, because that could be grounds for termination." The defensive hostility in Bob's voice made Marcus realize that his viral moment was creating complications he hadn't anticipated. While the broader public was celebrating his story, his immediate supervisors were viewing it as a potential problem rather than a positive development. By Sunday morning, the story had reached local television news. Marcus watched in surreal fascination as Channel 7's weekend anchor introduced a segment about the MIT genius working as a janitor in our own backyard. The report included interviews with parents from career day, footage of the viral presentation, and background research into Marcus's academic achievements. Dr. Sarah Mitchell appeared on camera, speaking with obvious respect about the technical improvements Marcus had made to the school environment. "What I initially noticed as better air quality turns out to be the result of sophisticated engineering analysis and implementation. Mr. Thompson has been essentially working as an uncredentialed facilities engineer while being paid as a janitor." The report also featured interviews with some of Marcus's former MIT classmates who spoke about his academic brilliance and expressed bewilderment about his current circumstances. David Chen appeared via video call from his Silicon Valley office, explaining Marcus's doctoral research and its potential applications for global water access. "Marcus Thompson was one of the most innovative thinkers in our program," David told the reporter. "His water purification technology could revolutionize access to clean water in developing countries. The fact that he's been working as a janitor while possessing this level of expertise raises serious questions about how our society identifies and utilizes talent." Emma watched the news coverage with wide-eyed fascination, occasionally asking questions that revealed her growing understanding of her father's unusual situation. "Daddy, why didn't you tell me you went to the same school as the smart people on TV?" "Because it didn't seem important, sweetheart. What matters is our life together now, not what I did before you were born. But if you're really smart like they say, why do you clean the school instead of doing science work?" The question cut to the heart of Marcus's complicated relationship with his past and present. How could he explain to a 7-year-old the complex factors that had led from promising academic career to bankruptcy, divorce, and social invisibility? How could he convey the ways that single parenthood had redefined his priorities, making stability more important than ambition? "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," he said finally. "The important thing is that we landed somewhere good, where I can take care of you and you can grow up happy and safe." Monday morning brought a level of attention that transformed Marcus's usual routine into something unrecognizable. As he dropped Emma off at school, he noticed several news vans in the parking lot and clusters of parents speaking in animated conversations near the entrance. Emma seemed oblivious to the unusual activity, chattering excitedly about a science project as they walked toward her classroom. But Marcus felt the weight of curious stares from other parents, some appreciative and others that seemed more skeptical or critical. "Mr. Thompson!" Mrs. Chen intercepted them near the main office, her expression mixing enthusiasm with concern. "Emma, sweetheart, why don't you go put your backpack in your cubby? I need to speak with your father for a moment." After Emma skipped off toward her classroom, Mrs. Chen turned to Marcus with obvious complexity in her expression. "I wanted you to know how impressed I am by everything that's come to light about your background and contributions to our school. But I also want to prepare you, this level of attention is unprecedented for our little elementary school. Principal Rodriguez is fielding calls from reporters, and the district office is sending someone to assess the situation." The meeting with Principal Rodriguez and the district representative, Dr. Patricia Hayes, took place in the main office while classes were in session. Marcus sat across from them in his maintenance uniform, acutely aware of the contrast between his appearance and the extraordinary claims being made about his capabilities in national media coverage. "Mr. Thompson," Dr. Hayes began, consulting a tablet loaded with information, "we need to understand the extent of the modifications you've made to this building. If you've been performing unauthorized work on district property, there could be liability issues." Principal Rodriguez, who had always maintained a cordial but distant relationship with Marcus, now looked at him with obvious confusion. "Marcus, I have to ask, directly, did you really attend MIT? Do you actually have a PhD in engineering?" The questions felt like an interrogation, but Marcus answered them honestly. Yes, he had earned his doctorate from MIT. Yes, his dissertation had focused on water purification technology. Yes, he had made numerous improvements to the school's systems during his night shifts, though he had always been careful to work within safety protocols and to avoid any modifications that might create liability issues. "But why didn't you ever mention your background?" Principal Rodriguez asked, her voice carrying a mix of bewilderment and what might have been embarrassment. "We've had budget meetings where your insights could have been valuable. We've hired consultants to address problems you were apparently solving on your own." Marcus chose his words carefully. "My job description is night janitor. I didn't think my previous experience was relevant to my current responsibilities. I made improvements because I could, not because I expected recognition or credit." Dr. Hayes made notes on her tablet, her expression suggesting she was calculating potential legal and public relations implications. "We'll need to conduct a comprehensive assessment of all modifications you've made. If they're beneficial and safely implemented as they appear to be, the district will need to decide how to proceed." The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the office door. Principal Rodriguez's assistant entered with an expression of barely controlled excitement. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a man here from the MIT Alumni Association, and someone from the governor's office called about the viral video. Also, CNN wants to schedule an interview, and there's a filmmaker here who says he's making a documentary about hidden talent in America." Marcus felt the surreal expansion of his situation accelerating beyond any possibility of control. In less than 72 hours, he had gone from invisible night janitor to the center of a national conversation about education, opportunity, and the nature of intelligence itself. The rest of the day brought a parade of visitors, phone calls, and requests for interviews. Marcus declined most of them, overwhelmed by the attention and concerned about protecting Emma from the chaos surrounding their formerly quiet life. But the most significant call came that afternoon, from David Chen in Silicon Valley. "Marcus, I hope you'll forgive me for tracking down your number," David began. "But I wanted to reach out directly. Your presentation reminded me why I admired your thinking so much at MIT. I've been following your water purification research, and I think there might be opportunities to revisit that work if you're interested." The conversation that followed was surreal in its implications. David explained that his AI company had been developing applications for water management and purification, areas where Marcus's research could be immediately valuable. He was offering Marcus a consulting position that would allow him to work remotely while maintaining his responsibilities to Emma, with compensation that would dramatically improve their financial situation. "But I haven't done research in years," Marcus protested. "I've been cleaning schools and fixing broken equipment." "From what I can see in the news coverage, you've been solving complex systems problems every day," David countered. "The skills transfer perfectly. Plus, your perspective as someone who's worked on the practical implementation side would be invaluable." As Marcus walked through Riverside Elementary that evening, Beginning his regular janitorial routine while his phone continued to buzz with interview requests and job offers, he reflected on the strange transformation of his circumstances. The building looked the same, smelled the same, required the same careful attention to detail that had occupied his nights for 3 years. But everything else had changed. The work he'd done in shadows was now being analyzed and praised by engineering experts. The improvements he'd made quietly were being evaluated by district officials who were finally understanding their scope and sophistication. Most importantly, Emma was walking through school hallways where her classmates now knew her father was not just a janitor, but someone whose story was inspiring people across the country. "Daddy," Emma said that evening as they shared dinner in their small apartment. "Katie's mom said you might be on TV again tomorrow. Are you going to be famous like the people in movies?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. The viral video had opened doors he'd assumed were permanently closed, created opportunities he'd stopped allowing himself to imagine. But fame itself seemed less important than the validation it represented. Proof that his worth hadn't been diminished by his circumstances. That his contributions had value regardless of job titles or social recognition. "I don't know about being famous, sweetheart," he replied. "But I think some good things might happen because people finally understand what we've known all along, that everyone has hidden talents, and sometimes the most important work happens where nobody's watching." Outside their apartment window, the city lights twinkled with the same pattern they'd always shown, but everything felt different now. Tomorrow would bring new possibilities, new challenges, and new questions about how to balance the life they'd built with the opportunities that sudden recognition had created. The hidden genius was hidden no longer, and the world was finally paying attention. The conference room at the district office had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Marcus sat at the head of a polished mahogany table, still wearing his maintenance uniform but surrounded by administrators, board members, and consultants who were treating him with a deference that felt surreal after 3 years of professional invisibility. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the district superintendent, spread architectural plans across the table while gesturing toward her tablet, which displayed cost projections and efficiency analyses. "Marcus, based on our assessment of the improvements you've implemented at Riverside Elementary, we're looking at approximately $2.3 million in saved costs and prevented maintenance issues over the past 3 years. The number hung in the air, representing more money than Marcus had earned in his entire tenure as a night janitor. Around the table, board members nodded with expressions that mixed appreciation with embarrassment recognition that they had been employing someone whose capabilities far exceeded his compensation and official responsibilities. "The question now," continued Dr. Hayes, "is how we move forward. We're prepared to offer you the position of Director of Facilities Innovation for the entire district. You'd oversee maintenance and improvement protocols for all 23 schools, with a starting salary of $95,000 plus benefits and a budget for implementing district-wide efficiency improvements." Marcus studied the job description document they'd placed before him, noting the irony that his 3 years of invisible expertise had culminated in an offer to do officially what he'd been doing unofficially. The salary alone would transform his and Emma's circumstances. No more stretching grocery budgets, no more anxiety about unexpected expenses, no more living in the cramped apartment that had been all he could afford on a janitor's wages. "It's a generous offer," Marcus replied carefully, "but I need to consider how this would affect my daughter's schedule and stability." Board member Janet Morrison leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Marcus, we understand that Emma is your priority. The position would be primarily day shift, but we'd build flexibility into your schedule for school pickup, appointments, and family responsibilities. We want to make this work for both of you." The meeting concluded with Marcus requesting time to consider their offer, but as he drove home that afternoon, his phone rang continuously with similar propositions. Tech companies that had learned about his background through the viral video were competing to bring his expertise to their teams. A water purification startup in Seattle offered him a senior engineering position with equity compensation. A Silicon Valley firm wanted him to lead their environmental technology division. An international NGO proposed hiring him to implement water systems in developing countries. Each opportunity represented not just career advancement but validation of the professional identity he'd thought he'd lost forever. For 3 years, he'd defined himself primarily as Emma's father, setting aside the intellectual ambitions that had once driven him to pursue groundbreaking research. Now, suddenly, multiple organizations were recognizing his value and competing for his contributions. The most intriguing call came from Rebecca Martinez, a documentary filmmaker whose previous work had earned critical acclaim for examining hidden stories of American resilience and innovation. "Marcus, your story represents something profound about how we identify and nurture talent in this country," Rebecca explained during their phone conversation. "I'd like to document your journey, not just the viral moment, but the deeper narrative about expertise, opportunity, and the ways society overlooks genius when it appears in unexpected contexts." The documentary proposal felt both flattering and invasive. Rebecca outlined her vision, following Marcus and Emma over the course of 6 months as they navigated the opportunities created by viral fame, exploring themes of hidden potential, economic inequality, and the definition of success in modern America. "I'm particularly interested in Emma's perspective," Rebecca continued. "Her unwavering belief in your worth, despite social messages about job prestige, represents a kind of wisdom that adults often lose." The father-daughter dynamic is central to what makes this story resonate. That evening, as Marcus helped Emma with her homework at their small kitchen table, he found himself observing their routine with new awareness. The cramped apartment that had felt sufficient now seemed almost quaint compared to the suburban homes and private schools that his new salary could afford. Emma's second-hand clothes and carefully budgeted activities could be replaced with advantages he'd never been able to provide. "Daddy, you seem distracted," Emma observed, looking up from her math worksheet. "Is everything okay?" Marcus set down the job offer documents he'd been reviewing and focused on his daughter's concerned expression. "I'm thinking about some decisions we might need to make, sweetheart. Some people want to offer me different kinds of work because of the video from Career Day." "Different? How?" Emma asked, her 7-year-old mind immediately focused on the practical implications. "Well, I might not work at your school anymore. I might have a job during the day instead of at night, and we might be able to move to a bigger apartment." Emma considered this information with characteristic seriousness. "Would I still go to Riverside Elementary?" "That would depend on where we decided to live and what job I took," Marcus replied honestly. "Some of the opportunities are in other cities." The possibility of leaving hadn't fully occurred to Emma until that moment. Her expression shifted from curiosity to concern as she processed the implications of major change to their carefully constructed life. "But what about Mrs. Chen and my friends? And who would take care of our school if you didn't work there anymore?" Emma's questions cut to the heart of Marcus's own conflicted feelings. The viral video had created opportunities he dreamed about during his darkest professional moments, but it had also threatened to disrupt the stability they'd built together. For 3 years their life had been modest, but predictable. Emma had thrived in the consistency of their routine, the security of familiar surroundings, and the knowledge that her father was always available when she needed him. The following week brought a parade of virtual interviews and site visits as various organizations tried to recruit Marcus's expertise. He took vacation days from his janitorial job to accommodate the meetings, feeling increasingly disconnected from the night shift routine that had defined his life for so long. A particularly compelling opportunity came from Aquatech Solutions, the Seattle-based startup that was developing next-generation water purification systems for disaster relief and developing world applications. During a video conference with their founding team, Marcus found himself energized by technical discussions that reminded him why he'd pursued engineering in the first place. "Your doctoral research on membrane filtration could revolutionize our approach to portable water treatment," explained Dr. Lisa Nakamura, Aquatech's Chief Technology Officer. "We're offering not just a position, but the chance to return to the kind of innovative work that could impact millions of lives." The conversation awakened intellectual passions that Marcus had carefully suppressed during his years of professional exile. He found himself sketching improvement designs and considering research applications that could build on his original doctoral work. For the first time in years, he imagined himself in laboratory settings, collaborating with other engineers, publishing research that could advance human knowledge. But that evening, as he watched Emma practice piano in their small living room, the contrast between his professional possibilities and his parental responsibilities felt stark. Moving to Seattle would mean disrupting Emma's education, removing her from the community where she'd found her voice, and potentially compromising the father-daughter bond that had sustained them both through difficult transitions. The documentary filming began the following Monday, with Rebecca and her small crew following Marcus through his daily routine while conducting interviews about his background and current circumstances. The process felt intrusive initially, but Rebecca's questions prompted Marcus to articulate thoughts and feelings he'd rarely examined directly. "When you're cleaning the same classrooms where you once imagined your daughter learning, what goes through your mind?" Rebecca asked during a late-night filming session at Riverside Elementary. Marcus paused in his mopping to consider the question. "I think about making sure her environment is perfect," he replied. "That everything works the way it should, that she's safe and comfortable, and able to focus on learning. The irony isn't lost on me that I once designed systems to provide clean water to villages, and now I'm ensuring that her classroom has clean floors and functional technology. But both jobs are about creating conditions where people can thrive." The documentary crew also interviewed Emma, capturing her articulate explanations of her father's work and her matter-of-fact pride in his contributions. Watching 7-year-old Emma discuss complex concepts like system optimization and problem-solving with the confidence of someone twice her age, Marcus realized that their unconventional lifestyle had given her perspectives that traditional middle-class childhoods might not provide. "My daddy is the smartest person I know," Emma told Rebecca's camera with absolute conviction. "He fixes things that other people don't even notice, are broken. That's what heroes do. They see problems and they solve them, even when nobody asks them to." The week of decision-making culminated in a family dinner conversation that would determine the trajectory of their future. Marcus had spread the various job offers across their kitchen table, creating a visual representation of the choices before them. Emma sat across from him, having insisted on being included in discussions that would affect her life. "Okay, Em," Marcus began. "I want to explain each of these opportunities and get your thoughts." He outlined the district position first, the chance to stay in their community while dramatically improving their financial situation and giving him official recognition for the work he'd been doing unofficially. Then he described the Seattle startup opportunity, emphasizing the chance to return to cutting-edge research that could help people around the world. Finally, he mentioned the various other tech positions that would require relocation but offered even higher salaries and prestige. Emma listened with remarkable attention for a 7-year-old, asking clarifying questions about logistics and implications. When Marcus finished his explanations, she sat quietly for several minutes, processing the information with the same systematic approach she'd learned from watching him solve problems. "Daddy," she said finally, "can I ask you something important?" "Of course, sweetheart." "When you were doing the science work before I was born, were you happy?" The question surprised Marcus with its perceptiveness. "I thought I was," he replied honestly. "I was excited about the research and proud of what I was accomplishing, but I was also working constantly, traveling frequently, and focused on things that felt important but distant. And, when you work at my school, taking care of everything and fixing problems, are you happy?" Marcus considered her question carefully. "I'm happy because I'm taking care of the place where you learn and grow. I'm happy because I can be available when you need me. I'm happy because we have time together every day. The work itself is satisfying because I'm making things better, even if most people don't notice." Emma nodded sagely. "So, maybe the question isn't which job is the best, but which job lets you be the kind of person you want to be." The wisdom in her statement took Marcus's breath away. In her 7-year-old clarity, Emma had identified the core issue that all the salary negotiations and career discussions had obscured. The choice wasn't simply between financial opportunity and current stability. It was about defining what kind of life would honor both his capabilities and his values. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus called David Chen to discuss the various opportunities in detail. "David, I appreciate all the interest from your network," Marcus began. "But I need to understand something. Are these offers genuine recognition of my current capabilities? Or are they responses to viral fame that might not sustain long-term career satisfaction?" David's answer was characteristically thoughtful. "Marcus, your MIT work was groundbreaking, and your problem-solving approach at the elementary school demonstrates that your analytical skills have only sharpened. The offers are real because the need for your expertise is real. But you're right to question whether the motivation behind them will create sustainable professional relationships. The truth is," Marcus continued, "I've discovered something unexpected about myself during these 3 years. I find genuine satisfaction in making immediate, tangible improvements to my daughter's environment. The impact might be smaller in scale than global water purification projects, but it's more personal and more meaningful to me now." Their conversation helped Marcus recognize that his professional identity had evolved in ways he hadn't fully acknowledged. The ambition and prestige-seeking that had driven his earlier career had been replaced by values centered on family, community, and practical service. The viral video had created opportunities to return to his former professional trajectory, but it had also clarified that he no longer wanted the same things he'd once pursued. The decision crystallized over the weekend during Emma's soccer game. As Marcus watched his daughter play with friends whose parents had come to know and respect him through the viral video aftermath, he realized that their community at Riverside Elementary represented something valuable that no salary increase could replace. On Monday morning, Marcus called Dr. Hayes to accept the district's offer, with one modification. Instead of Director of Facilities Innovation, he proposed a new position, Director of Educational Environment Systems. His role would combine facilities management with educational technology integration, allowing him to apply his engineering expertise while remaining connected to classroom learning environments. "I want to work directly with teachers and students," Marcus explained. "The systems I design should be informed by the people who use them daily. And I want Emma to see that meaningful work can happen in many contexts, including the school community we're already part of." Dr. Hayes agreed enthusiastically, recognizing that Marcus's community-based approach would likely produce more effective solutions than traditional top-down administration. The documentary crew captured Marcus's decision-making process and its aftermath. Rebecca interviewed him several weeks into his new position as he worked with teachers to design technology solutions that enhanced rather than complicated their educational objectives. "You chose community engagement over career advancement," Rebecca observed. "Do you ever regret not taking one of the higher-profile opportunities?" Marcus looked up from the tablet where he was designing an interactive learning system for the third-grade mathematics curriculum. "I realized that advancement isn't the same thing as fulfillment," he replied. "The viral video opened doors I thought were closed forever, but it also helped me understand that I'd already found work that aligned with my values. I just needed the confidence to claim it officially." 3 months into his new role, Marcus had implemented efficiency improvements across all district schools, collaborated with teachers to integrate technology seamlessly into classroom instruction, and established protocols that would save the district over $500,000 annually. More importantly, he had created a model for how technical expertise could serve educational communities without imposing external agendas. Emma thrived in the stability of their continued life at Riverside Elementary, now enhanced by the financial security that allowed for piano lessons, soccer league participation, and the occasional family vacation. She took pride in her father's official recognition, while maintaining the same matter-of-fact appreciation for his work that had sparked the viral video in the first place. "Daddy," Emma said one evening as they walked through the school hallways during his rounds, "I'm glad you decided to stay here with me instead of moving away for the fancy jobs." "Why is that, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew her answer. Because now other kids get to have their schools fixed by someone who really cares about making things work better, and because you're still my hero, Daddy, but now everyone else knows it too. As they completed their evening walk through Riverside Elementary past the computer lab where students now had access to cutting-edge educational software, through hallways lit by energy-efficient systems that Marcus had designed, and by the playground where his safety improvements allowed children to play with confidence, Marcus reflected on the unexpected journey that viral recognition had created. The video had transformed their external circumstances while confirming the internal values that had sustained them through difficult years. Emma's innocent declaration of, "You're my hero, Daddy," had not only gone viral, but had reminded Marcus that heroism often lay in consistent, caring attention to the environments where children learn and grow. The transformation was complete, but it had led them home. The October morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the district administration building as Marcus Thompson adjusted his tie and reviewed his presentation notes one final time. The conference room where he now held weekly meetings with school principals and department heads bore little resemblance to the cramped janitor's closet where he'd once stored his cleaning supplies. But the fundamental mission remained the same: ensuring that children had environments where they could learn and thrive. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus began, addressing the 15 principals who represented every school in the district. "Today we're going to review the implementation results from our Integrated Learning Environment project and discuss the expansion timeline for the remaining schools." A year had passed since the viral video transformed Marcus from invisible night janitor to Chief Innovation Officer for Educational Systems, a position created specifically to harness his unique combination of technical expertise and intimate understanding of how schools actually functioned. The role had evolved far beyond his initial expectations, encompassing not just facilities improvement, but comprehensive system integration that enhanced every aspect of the educational experience. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the superintendent, gestured toward the large display screen showing efficiency metrics and cost savings data. "Marcus, before you begin the technical presentation, I want the principals to understand the scope of what we've accomplished this year. System-wide, we're looking at $1.2 million in operational savings, a 35% reduction in maintenance-related disruptions to classroom instruction, and technology integration that's placed our district among the top 5 in the state for educational innovation." The numbers represented tangible validation of Marcus's approach, but what satisfied him most was the transformation he witnessed daily in school environments. Students who had previously struggled with outdated technology now engaged confidently with interactive learning systems. Teachers who had once worked around malfunctioning equipment now had tools that enhanced, rather than hindered, their instructional objectives. Maintenance issues that had previously required emergency interventions were now prevented through predictive monitoring systems. "The key insight," Marcus explained to the assembled principals, "has been understanding that schools are complex ecosystems where everything connects. Improve the air quality, and students focus better. Optimize the lighting, and reading comprehension increases. Integrate technology seamlessly, and both teachers and students become more creative and collaborative." Principal Rodriguez from Riverside Elementary raised her hand with a question that carried personal significance. "Marcus, when you were working at our school as a janitor, did you already envision these kinds of system-wide improvements?" The question prompted Marcus to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this moment. A year ago, he had been pushing a squeaky cart through empty hallways, making improvements that no one noticed or acknowledged. Now he sat at the head of a conference table, presenting innovations that were being studied by districts across the country. "I think I understood intuitively that small improvements could have cascading effects," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "But I never imagined having the authority or resources to implement changes at this scale. Sometimes the best innovations come from people who understand systems from the ground up, literally." After the meeting concluded, Marcus returned to his office to prepare for the evening's event, the annual Riverside Elementary Innovation Showcase, where students, parents, and community members would gather to celebrate educational achievements and preview new initiatives. This year's showcase held special significance because Emma, now 8 years old and in 3rd grade, had been selected to introduce the keynote presentation, a role that would bring their story full circle in the most public way possible. Marcus's office reflected his evolution from hidden contributor to recognized leader. The walls displayed his MIT diploma, alongside awards from educational organizations and photos of district-wide improvements he'd implemented. But his favorite decoration remained Emma's original crayon drawing of My Hero Daddy, now framed and positioned where he could see it during every video conference and strategic planning session. His assistant knocked on the open door, holding a tablet with the afternoon schedule. "Marcus, the film crew from the documentary will be here at 3:00 to capture some final footage for tonight's showcase." And Rebecca Martinez called to confirm that the CNN education correspondent will be attending the event. The documentary about Marcus and Emma's story had premiered at the Sundance Film Festival 6 months earlier, earning critical acclaim for its nuanced portrayal of hidden talent, economic inequality, and the transformative power of a child's unwavering belief in her parents' worth. Hidden Genius: A Father's Journey had subsequently been distributed to schools across the country as an educational tool for discussing careers, capabilities, and the importance of recognizing potential in unexpected places. The film's impact had extended far beyond entertainment value. Several districts had modified their hiring practices to better identify candidates whose expertise might not be reflected in traditional credentials. A nonprofit organization had been established to help underemployed professionals find opportunities that matched their actual capabilities. Most significantly, the story had inspired thousands of children to look beyond job titles and social status when evaluating the worth and contributions of adults in their communities. As Marcus drove to Riverside Elementary that afternoon, he reflected on the transformation of his daily routine. Instead of arriving after dark to work in isolation, he now entered the building during regular hours, greeted by students who waved enthusiastically and teachers who sought his advice on everything from classroom technology to energy efficiency. The social invisibility that had once defined his experience had been replaced by recognition that sometimes felt overwhelming in its intensity. The school hallways buzzed with preparation for the evening showcase. Students had created displays showcasing projects that utilized the enhanced technology systems Marcus had implemented. Teachers had prepared presentations about improved learning outcomes and innovative instructional methods enabled by better infrastructure. Parents were arriving early to volunteer with setup, many of them individuals who had once looked through Marcus as if he were furniture rather than a person with valuable insights and capabilities. "Mr. Thompson!" called out Mrs. Patterson, the 4th-grade teacher who had been among the few faculty members to treat Marcus with consistent respect during his janitor years. "I wanted you to see what my students created using the interactive learning boards you designed for our classroom." The student project she showed him demonstrated how technology integration could enhance creativity rather than replace human connection. Her students had collaborated on a digital storytelling project that combined research, writing, multimedia production, and presentation skills in ways that would have been impossible with the outdated equipment that had previously defined their learning environment. "This is exactly what we hope to achieve," Marcus told her, studying the sophisticated work that 8- and 9-year-olds had produced. "Technology should amplify student capabilities, not dictate learning activities." As evening approached, the gymnasium filled with families, community members, and visitors who had come to witness the culmination of a year's worth of educational innovation. The same space where Marcus had delivered his viral Career Day presentation now hosted an event that celebrated systematic transformation rather than individual inspiration. Emma appeared at his side, wearing a navy blue dress that she'd selected specifically for her role as the evening's opening presenter. At 8 years old, she carried herself with remarkable poise, but Marcus could detect the subtle signs of nervousness that always preceded her public speaking engagements. "Are you ready for this, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, adjusting the small microphone that would amplify her voice throughout the gymnasium. "I think so," Emma replied, checking her note cards with the same methodical preparation that she'd learned from watching her father approach complex problems. "I practiced my introduction with Mrs. Chen, and she said I should just talk to everyone like they're my friends." The advice was sound, but Marcus knew that the audience Emma would address included education officials, journalists, and documentary filmmakers whose presence added weight to what might otherwise have been a simple school celebration. The viral video from the previous year had created expectations and attention that transformed every public appearance into a potential national news story. "Remember," Marcus told Emma, kneeling to meet her eyes at the same level, "you don't need to be perfect or impressive. Just be yourself, and say what you really think. That's what made people pay attention to us in the first place." Principal Rodriguez took the stage first, welcoming the audience and providing context for the evening's presentations. 1 year ago, this gymnasium was the site of a career day presentation that went viral and changed not just our school district, but our national conversation about talent, opportunity, and the importance of recognizing expertise wherever it appears. She gestured toward the large screen behind her, which displayed statistics about the district's improvements. Increased test scores, reduced maintenance costs, enhanced technology integration, and improved student and teacher satisfaction metrics. Tonight, we celebrate not just individual achievement, but systematic transformation that has elevated educational experiences for every student in our community. The applause was warm and sustained, but Marcus felt his attention focusing entirely on Emma as she prepared to take the stage. Her role as the evening's opening presenter represented far more than ceremonial introduction. It symbolized the child's perspective that had initiated their entire journey of recognition and transformation. Emma approached the microphone with measured steps, her small figure commanding the attention of several hundred adults whose respect she had earned through her articulate advocacy for her father's worth and contributions. "Good evening, everyone," Emma began, her young voice carrying clearly through the gymnasium's sound system. "My name is Emma Thompson, and I'm here to introduce someone very special, not just because he's my daddy, but because he's proof that heroes come in all different forms." The audience settled into attentive silence as Emma continued with remarkable composure. "Last year, when I stood up at Career Day and called my father my hero, a lot of people were surprised. Some people thought it was cute that a little girl loved her daddy so much. But I wasn't being cute, I was being accurate." Marcus felt his chest tighten with pride and emotion as Emma demonstrated the same clear-eyed assessment that had characterized her original viral moment. "My daddy taught me that you can't judge people by their job titles or their uniforms or where they live," Emma continued, glancing toward Marcus with a smile of confidence. "You have to judge them by what they actually do, how they solve problems, and whether they make things better for other people." The gymnasium had become completely quiet, with even the youngest children in the audience paying attention to Emma's words. Her ability to articulate complex concepts with childlike clarity had matured over the past year, but the essential wisdom remained unchanged. "Tonight, you're going to see all the amazing improvements my daddy has made to schools all across our district," Emma said, gesturing toward the display screens that would soon showcase Marcus's innovations. "But I want you to remember that he was doing this kind of work even when nobody was watching, even when nobody said thank you, even when people thought he was just a janitor." She paused, consulting her note cards briefly before looking back up at the audience with determination. "The most important thing I've learned this year is that being a hero isn't about having a fancy job or getting recognition. It's about seeing problems that other people miss and fixing them because it's the right thing to do. It's about taking care of other people's children, like they're your own family." The silence that followed Emma's words carried emotional weight that Marcus could feel throughout the gymnasium. Parents, who had once barely acknowledged his existence, now regarded him with expressions of genuine respect and appreciation. Teachers who had previously seen him as peripheral to their educational mission now understood his contributions as central to their students' learning experiences. So please join me in welcoming the Chief Innovation Officer for Educational Systems, Dr. Marcus Thompson, who also happens to be the best daddy in the whole world. The applause that followed was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. His attention remained focused on Emma's beaming face as she stepped back from the microphone, her introduction complete and her message delivered with characteristic precision. As Marcus took the stage, he felt the weight of the journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, he had stood in this same space, feeling embarrassed about his uniform and uncertain about his place in the school community. Now he approached the microphone wearing a suit and carrying the respect of education professionals who sought his expertise and valued his insights. "Thank you, Emma," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the emotion he felt. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard was not just a daughter's love for her father, but a child's wisdom about how we should evaluate worth and contribution in our communities." He gestured toward the display screen, which began showing before and after images of technology integration, energy efficiency improvements, and enhanced learning environments across the district's schools. The innovations we'll discuss tonight represent systematic transformation, but they began with the same principle Emma just articulated: seeing problems that others might overlook and taking responsibility for solving them. Marcus's presentation detailed the technical achievements and cost savings that had resulted from his first year as Chief Innovation Officer, but he framed these accomplishments within the broader narrative of hidden potential and the importance of recognizing expertise in unexpected contexts. Every school community contains individuals whose capabilities exceed their current opportunities, Marcus explained, showing slides that highlighted other district employees who had contributed innovative solutions. "Our challenge as leaders is creating environments where those capabilities can be recognized, developed, and utilized for the benefit of all students." The presentation included video testimonials from teachers whose classrooms had been enhanced by Marcus's innovations, students who had benefited from improved technology and infrastructure, and parents who had observed increased engagement and achievement in their children's educational experiences. But the most powerful moment came when Principal Rodriguez took the stage to introduce a special segment, the original viral video from Career Day, now edited with follow-up interviews and context that demonstrated its ongoing impact. This video has been viewed over 15 million times. Principal Rodriguez announced as the familiar footage began playing on the large screen. It has been used in teacher training programs, leadership development workshops, and career counseling sessions across the country. But tonight, we want to share some of the responses it has generated from other children who were inspired by Emma's example. The edited segment included video messages from students across the country who had been motivated by Emma's story to advocate for overlooked adults in their own communities. A 9-year-old in Detroit had convinced her school board to hire her grandfather, a retired engineer, as a STEM education consultant. A 10-year-old in Portland had nominated his mother, who worked as a cafeteria aide despite having a college degree in nutrition, for a position developing healthy meal programs. Each story demonstrated the ripple effect of Emma's original declaration, showing how children's clarity about worth and capability could inspire adult recognition of hidden talent and unexplored potential. As the evening progressed through displays of student projects, teacher presentations, and community recognition ceremonies, Marcus found himself reflecting on the unexpected trajectory that had brought them to this point. The viral video had created opportunities he'd never imagined, but more importantly, it had validated the values that had sustained him through years of financial struggle and social invisibility. During the reception that followed the formal presentations, Marcus was approached by Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the surgeon who had been among the first to recognize his technical contributions during his janitor years. "Marcus, I wanted to thank you personally," Dr. Mitchell said, holding a glass of punch while gesturing toward her daughter, who was playing nearby with Emma and other children. Sarah's been inspired by Emma's example to really look at people differently. She started asking thoughtful questions about everyone she meets, what they're good at, what problems they solve, what contributions they make that might not be obvious. Similar conversations continued throughout the evening, as parents shared stories about how the viral video and its aftermath had influenced their children's understanding of work, worth, and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. Teachers described classroom discussions about hidden talents and community contributions. Community members talked about recognizing and supporting overlooked expertise in their neighborhoods and workplaces. As the evening wound down and families began departing, Emma found Marcus near the display of district-wide improvement metrics. "Daddy, did we do good tonight?" she asked, leaning against his arm with the comfortable familiarity of their close bond. "We did very well," Marcus replied, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "But more importantly, I think we helped other people understand something important about recognizing potential and giving everyone a chance to contribute their best capabilities. Do you think the other kids will remember to look for heroes in regular places?" Emma asked, her question cutting to the heart of the evening's deeper message. Marcus considered her question seriously, watching as families gathered coats and said goodbye to friends and teachers. "I think some of them will," he said finally. "And those children will grow up to be adults who create opportunities for people like us, people whose worth might not be immediately obvious, but whose contributions can change everything." A year later, as they drove home through streets illuminated by autumn moonlight, Marcus reflected on the transformation that had begun with Emma's simple declaration of faith in his worth. The viral video had created external changes: career advancement, financial security, public recognition, but the most significant transformation had been internal. The recovery of his confidence in his own value and the validation of priorities he'd thought might be limiting his potential. Emma fell asleep in the passenger seat, still wearing her navy blue dress and clutching the program from the evening showcase. In the quiet of their car, with the radio playing softly and the city settling into nighttime calm, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion. They had traveled from invisibility to recognition, from financial struggle to security, from isolation to community leadership. But the most important elements of their relationship remained unchanged. Emma's unwavering belief in his worth, his commitment to creating environments where she could thrive, and their shared understanding that heroism often appeared in the most ordinary circumstances. The viral video had made them temporarily famous, but the values it celebrated: dedication, expertise applied with humility, and a child's clear vision of what truly mattered, made them permanently strong. As they pulled into the parking space outside their new apartment, larger and more comfortable but still in the same neighborhood where Emma had established friendships and Marcus had found community, the future stretched ahead with possibilities that had once seemed impossible. Tomorrow, Marcus would return to work, implementing innovations across schools where thousands of children learned and grew. Emma would continue developing into a young person whose wisdom about human worth had already influenced a national conversation. Together, they would build on the foundation of recognition and opportunity that had emerged from her brave declaration, "You're my hero, Daddy." The words that had once echoed through a gymnasium had become a rallying cry for recognizing genius wherever it appeared, seeing potential beyond job titles, and understanding that sometimes the most powerful voice belonged to a child who saw clearly what adults had learned to overlook. In the end, they had discovered that heroes came in all forms, and sometimes the greatest heroism lay in the unwavering belief that everyone deserved to be seen, valued, and given the chance to contribute their unique gifts to the world. The story had come full circle, but its impact would continue rippling outward, inspiring other children to recognize heroes in unexpected places and other adults to claim the worth they had always possessed.